everyone, welcome back to a new video. I'm so happy that you're here. In today's video, I just wanted to share with you all some of the recent books that I have purchased, and they all fit a very specific theme, as the majority of them, minus two of the books, are all Victorian. So I have Victorian classics and some historical fiction as well to share with you all. I'm going to try to go through all of these as quickly as possible. It will be a shorter video, and I'll start off with the two books that are not Victorian related. And I just realized you can see my little little container of Pringles just there in the corner. You know, sometimes you just need a snack. That's the best spot to put them so that my siblings don't steal them. But anyways, like I said, I did get two books that are not Victorian related at all. The first one here is The Year of Miss Agnes, and this one I believe is about a group of children that live in Alaska. It says, 10-year-old Frederica doesn't have much faith that the new teacher in town will last very long. After all, they never do. Most teachers who come to their one-room schoolhouse in remote Alaska leave at the first smell of fish, claiming that life there is just too hard. But Miss Agnes is different. She doesn't get frustrated with her students, and she throws away old textbooks and reads Robin Hood instead. For the first time, Fred and her classmates begin to enjoy their lessons to learn to read and write. But will Miss Agnes be like the rest and leave as quickly as she came? I've heard nothing but praise for this book. It sounds so lovely and cozy, and I've heard it's really good for fans of like Little House on the Prairie and that kind of cozy book, and I'm very excited and very intrigued to read this one. I've also mentioned that I love the website Abe Books, and I find such awesome thrifted books on there with great prices. The shipping isn't too bad, but I found Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day by Winifred Watson, and it's in decent shape. I don't know if you can tell, but it does have some like brown staining on the top there, and the spine is just a little bit scuffed. But all in all, it's in decent condition. It's a Persephone classic, and it's the first Persephone classic I've ever purchased. They're so pricey, and I was just so happy to find this used edition, and I love the end papers too. And I've heard nothing but praise for it. I've heard it's super funny and just such a cozy book. I haven't read the summary for it, but I've heard plenty of people talk about it, and they just make it sound so cozy. And I don't remember too much about it, but I do think this will be a book that I very much enjoy. So I'm really happy with this find as well. Alrighty, but the rest of the books are all Victorian. So we have Victorian classics and some historical fiction and a couple Victorian mysteries as well. And I'm so glad that I got these as well. The majority of them are also thrifted. First off, we have 5 books here that are all by Anthony Trollope. I like to go into classics fairly blind, so I'm not going to read summaries for any of them. But we have Ralph the Heir, and I love this cover. I love these old paintings on book covers, especially classics. We also have The Bertrams, another illustration that I just love. And the only thing I will say about these two is you can tell they're pretty, it's obvious they've been read, but the mildew odor is pretty strong, and I tried putting them in like a sealed container with some baking soda in a little jar, open, and just to get the smell out, and it didn't really work. So if any of you have any, I guess, ideas of a better way to get the mildew smell out, or if baking soda is really the only way to do it. Mildew is awful. I hate the smell, but I am excited to have these as well. Worst comes to worst, I'll just read them online on Kindle, Project Gutenberg, that kind of thing. But they were very cheap on Abe Books, and I'm glad that I got them. And then also by Anthony Trollope, we have An Eye for an Eye. Not sure how I feel about that cover, but that's An Eye for an Eye. We also have The Claverlings, or Claverlings, The Claverings, or is it Claverings? Who cares? And then we have Is He Poppin' Joy as well. So I love Anthony Trollope so much, and I'm so excited about these finds. Thankfully, these ones do not smell like mildew. They just have that old book smell, and it's definitely different from a mildew odor. Just that old cozy book smell. I love it so much. I have 2 more classics to share here. First, we have Hester by Margaret Oliphant. I don't know much about it other than it's about a woman named Hester, and there's another woman named Catherine who has risen to power in some sort of way. I don't know too much, but there's a lot of conflict between this woman and the people around her. And again, I don't know much else. I don't want to know much else. So that is Hester. And then we also have The Doctor's Wife by Mary Elizabeth Braddon, which I finished just a couple days ago. I started reading it on Kindle, but realized I really wanted a physical edition, especially the Oxford World Classics editions, because the end notes at the back are wonderful. They just make the reading experience so much better for me. The Oxford World Classics edition is my absolute favorite for classics, not because of the font or anything like that, just The introduction's amazing, the endnotes are wonderful, and I don't know, it just makes the reading experience a lot better for me. But I will talk about my thoughts on this one in my October wrap-up. I had very, very mixed feelings about the book. I'm very glad that I read it, but very mixed feelings. I have a few historical mysteries that are set in the Victorian era as well. We have The Snake, the Crocodile, and the Dog. This is book 7 in the Amelia Peabody series. And then book 8 is The Hippopotamus Pool. And I do have books 1 to 6. I think I have to read 6 as well. I haven't read 6 from what I remember. And then we have 7 and 8 as well. I'm slowly collecting the series and so enjoying it. It is so fun. It's about Amelia Peabody. She lives in the late Victorian era. She's an Egyptologist, and she and her husband and family go to Egypt quite a lot and end up having to solve a lot of murders along the way. And it's just such a fun series. They're really great summertime reads, as they're usually set in a very hot climate. So I highly recommend this series. It's a lot of fun. This next book was on sale at my local bookstore, and I just had to grab it. I read another book by this author and really enjoyed it, and I really love Sherlock, so I felt like this would be the perfect read for Victober. I don't think I'll get to it this Victober, but maybe I'll read it in November. And that is The House of Silk by Anthony Horowitz, and it is a Sherlock Holmes novel. It's the first in a series, and it says, London, 1890, 221B Baker Street. A fine arts dealer named Edmund Carstairs visits Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson to beg for their help. He's being menaced by a strange man in a flat cap, a wanted criminal who seems to have followed him all the way from America. In the days that follow, Carstairs' home is robbed and his family is threatened, and then the first murder takes place. The House of Silk brings Sherlock Holmes back with all the nuance, pacing, and almost superhuman powers of analysis and deduction that made him the world's greatest detective, in a case depicting events too shocking, too monstrous ever to appear in print until now. From everyone that I've heard talk about this book, they say that Anthony Horowitz really does Sherlock justice. So from the one book that I read by him, Magpie Murders, I do trust that his writing at the very least will be great, and I'm really curious to see what I end up thinking about this one. This next book I am so excited to read, and I think I'm going to read it over the winter months. It screams winter to me for some reason, and that is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This is massive. It is chunky, but I'm so excited to read it. I've literally heard nothing but praise. This one is technically set in the early 19th century, so it's not quite the Victorian era yet, but it just feels Victorian to me when I hear people talk about it, and people compare her writing to Dickens, so it feels Victorian, in my opinion. But it says, the year is 1806. England is beleaguered by the long war with Napoleon, and centuries have passed since magicians faded into the nation's past. But one remains, the reclusive Mr. Norrell, whose displays of magic send a thrill through the country. Proceeding to London, he raises a beautiful woman from the dead and summons an army of ghostly ships to terrify the French. Yet the cautious, fussy Norrell is challenged by the emergence of another magician. Young, handsome, and daring, Jonathan Strange is the very antithesis of Norrell. So begins a dangerous battle between these two great men, which overwhelms that between England and France. And their own obsessions and secret dabblings with the dark arts are going to cause more trouble than they can imagine. I am usually wary with magical things in books, just my personal thing, but a bunch of people who have read this, who I trust, have very much enjoyed it. So we shall see, but I am very excited. And then I have 4 more books here. I will read the summary for just one because it is a series, and that is the Parish Orphans of Devon series by Mimi Matthews. I probably should have just bought the first book in the series and see if I like it, but I just love her writing so much. And with series, I really like to read them consecutively. I like to read them all together, which is why I don't start a lot of series that haven't been finished. But with this series, I think it's going to be one that I just fly through. So I had to get all 4. The first one is the matrimonial advertisement. And every time I look at this cover or read the title, I just feel like it has to be said in a British accent. The matrimonial advertisement is what it's called by Mimi Matthews. And this one, it says, she wanted sanctuary. Helena Reynolds will do anything to escape her life in London, even if that means traveling to a remote cliffside estate on the North Devon coast and marrying a complete stranger. But Greyfriars Abbey isn't the sort of refuge she imagined. An ex-army captain, Justin Thornhill, though he may be tall, dark, and devastatingly handsome, is anything but a romantic hero. He needed redemption. Justin has spent the last 2 decades making his fortune, settling scores and suffering a prolonged period of torture in an Indian prison. Now he needs someone to smooth the way for him with the villagers, someone to manage his household and warm his bed on occasion. What he needs, in short, is a wife, and a matrimonial advertisement seems the perfect way to acquire one. And then it looks like it's a marriage of convenience. So that is the first book, and I trust Mimi Matthews, so I'm very excited. I believe the second book is A Modest Independence, and I love this cover so much. I love all the covers in this series. And then I don't know which one is 3 and 4, but we have A Convenient Fiction and The Winter Companion. So those are the books that I've recently purchased, and I love how they're all very Victorian. It makes me very happy, especially because it is Victober. And yeah, I just wanted to share them in this shorter video. And if any of these books are books you've read and enjoyed, please let me know in the comments. It'll make me even more excited to read them. But that's it for this video. Thank you friends so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.